Release date, Thursday, December 1st, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of TBD Sportscast College Football with your hosts. I'm Mason.
And I'm Isaac.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 19. This is our championship weekend preview. Coming into championship weekend, we got a lot of games coming up, and we are super excited about it. So, jumping right into our game of the week, it's a good one. It's going to be a good one. Starting on Friday. Isaac, what's our game of the week?
Mason, our game of the week is 11th-ranked Utah against 4th-ranked USC on Friday night in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 Championship.
Yes, sir. Las Vegas, Nevada at Allegiant Stadium, home of the Raiders. This is our clear game of the week. I mean, this is really the only championship game that has some playoff implications. Maybe TCU, but USC must win or they're out. They already got one loss to Utah. Will they make it two? Or will they get revenge in this regular season rematch? This game has a big difference in professional predictions, especially the ones that we usually use. The matchup predictor, the ESPN matchup predictor, has Utah 62%. Vegas, however, has USC -3. That's a difference. That's one going one way and one going the other way. And we haven't seen it do that in a long time. Like, it was early season last time we saw Vegas and the matchup predictor go, like, pretty much opposite sides of the spectrum. Obviously, Vegas still has it close. The matchup predictor, having Utah at 62, basically says that they like Utah by a touchdown. So they don't think it'll be that close. This is going to be a good one. I think it is going to be close. I think Utah has a good defense. Obviously, their offense was very lackluster against Oregon when they actually came up against a good defense. But USC also doesn't really have that good of a defense. USC's offense is amazing. Utah's offense didn't do that well against Oregon, but they did extremely well against Colorado this past weekend. But, I mean, it's Colorado. Colorado is like the Vandy of the Pac-12. So, this one, because I got to pick first on this one. As much as I hate to say it, I got to go with USC on this one, dude. I think USC, I've said it all week. After watching Caleb Williams play against Notre Dame last week, he is the obvious choice, to me, for the Heisman. I think he's going to do exactly what he did to Notre Dame against Utah. I think that, this game is not going to be played at home. It's in a neutral site in Las Vegas. I think that gives them an advantage. I think that they've learned a lot since that loss, and I think USC, I think the Trojans are going to pull this one out.
Hey Mason, I think that's a great pick, man. I think, like you said, both teams have changed a lot in the past few weeks since since Utah pulled off the 2-point conversion to beat USC earlier in the season. I think this will be a really great game. It's interesting that the matchup predictor has Utah at 62%. Versus USC at favored by 3 points. I think this will be a really good game. I like the winner to cover the spread. And with that being said, honestly, I'm going to go with the Trojans as well in this one. I think they've learned a lot since the loss against Utah last time out. And Caleb Williams is playing like a Heisman candidate. I really think he could lift the trophy here in a few weeks. And for that reason, I'm going with SoCal.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with you. I think Caleb is going to prove himself again this weekend. Further as to why he should be the Heisman. Joey is picking Utah. Joey is picking Utah to win this game. I guess it's because of the defense. I'm not really sure why. But yeah, he's got Utah in this one, and we're going to be going opposite. And remember, the last time that me and Isaac went opposite from Joey, it was when South Carolina beat Clemson, and we picked South Carolina. So there you have it. The Pac-12 championship isn't the only conference championship on Friday. Looking at the Conference USA Championship, North Texas versus UTSA at 7:30 p.m. in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. We're not just doing Power Fives, we're also hitting the Group of Five championships. The spread on this one, UTSA 8.5. The matchup predictor is basically saying the same thing. Both teams struggled in Week 14 against middle-of-the-road opponents. UTSA had to come back 24-plus points to take the win against UTEP late. North Texas had to score a touchdown late just to take the win against Rice, of all teams. Could have been trap games. Could have just been the Group of Five. Who knows? Isaac, you got the first pick. You got it.
Well, Mason, this is a tough one, honestly, because you get UTSA who's favored by 8.5. And then you got both teams had to come from behind last week to get the win. Honestly, the Conference USA is a really interesting one. So this will be an interesting one because obviously they're playing in San Antonio, the home of UTSA. But honestly, I think North Texas comes in. I think they get it done, and I'm going to go with North Texas this weekend.
Yeah, man, I just don't know about that because, I mean, the Alamo Dome is UTSA's home stadium. They have home field advantage. They're 9-2. I mean, they did struggle against UTEP, but, I mean, they came back. They played well. But North Texas struggled against Rice. So for that reason, I'm going to have to go with UTSA. Like, sorry, bro, I had to go apart from you. But yeah, man, I got to go with UTSA. I got the Roadrunners to take this one. And I got the Roadrunners to cover the spread. I say Roadrunners by 10, cover the spread. Joey has UTSA as well. Wow, we have not picked a me and Joey against Isaac in a minute. Actually, we did last weekend. Me and Joey both picked North Texas, actually, to beat Rice, and Isaac picked Rice. Obviously, he was wrong. He was close to being right, but was wrong. So that one is that. Moving on to Saturday. We got the Big 12 Championship, number 10 Kansas State versus number 3 TCU at 12 p.m. in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. A lot of people want to say this game has playoff implications, and it may. Some people say TCU has to win this game to get in the playoffs, and they might. But I really don't think so. TCU is one of only 3 undefeated teams left in the entire FBS. That says something. They won games, and they won them in tough environments. They proved themselves all season, and they're still honestly not getting the credit they've earned. I honestly don't think they have to win this game in order to make it. Unlike USC and Ohio State, they have a 0 in the loss column. They've already played Kansas State and won. If they lose, that would only be 1 loss on their record in the Big 12 championship game to a team they've already beaten. I just don't see it. USC really is the only team that could be knocked out if they lose this weekend. And we talked about that on Wednesday. We talked about that yesterday. So, yeah, I don't think TCU needs this to solidify their playoff spot. I think even if they lose, they're in. That's not my official pick. I'm just saying TCU doesn't have to win this one. What do you think, Isaac?
Mason, going back to our reaction to the rankings yesterday, honestly, I still agree with you a lot. You know, TCU has played a great season. They've won in tough environments. One of the toughest of which I would have to say was last weekend in Waco when they went into Baylor. And even though they had to come from behind, they won with a field goal as time expired. You know, to a lackluster Baylor team, for lack of a better word. Honestly, TCU's proven themselves, and like you said, they have a 0 in the loss column. There's no reason TCU doesn't get in, whether they win or whether they lose. You know, not my official pick, but I think TCU will be in either way, so it'll be a good game. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Definitely. The spread on this one is TCU 2.5. The matchup predictor is TCU 54%. So the professionals think this game is going to be really close. And I think that it's a consensus for all of us that this game is going to be really close no matter who wins. Joey is picking first. Joey has Kansas State to win this game. Joey thinks that that because they didn't play with Adrian Martinez when they played in the regular season, and because that game was within 10, that Kansas State is going to come into the Big 12 championship with a better team and get this win. For me, I completely disagree with that. I got TCU, and I got TCU to cover the spread, obviously, because I don't think they're going to win by 2. I think they're going to win by at least 3. This game probably will be pretty close, but we've already seen the outcome of this one. I'm not saying it's going to be the same because that game was not in a neutral site. It was at TCU. But is this really a neutral site? Kansas State's coming from Kansas. Texas Christian is in Texas. There's probably going to be way more Texas Christian fans at this game than Kansas State fans. So this is probably going to be more 75% home crowd for TCU. I got TCU to win and to cover. I think that it'll be a close game. I think Kansas State's going to show up, and I think it's going to be close, but I don't think they have enough to pull it out, especially after the way we saw TCU play against Iowa State this past Saturday. Look, I know that they've had to come from behind in some games, but they just demolished Iowa State the week before they play Kansas State. It wasn't even a trap game. It wasn't even close. And Iowa State, like I said last week, their offense doesn't prove it, but they have one of the best defenses in the Big 12. So that's my pick on that one.
Yeah, Mason, I have to agree, man. TCU's had a great year. You know, K-State, K-State played them close last time. Kansas State's had a really good year. They're a top 10 team for the first time in several years. The Big 12 has been a just completely turned upside down this year. Oklahoma's run it for several years now, and all these guys come to the top, whereas Baylor and Oklahoma were at the bottom. Texas was somewhere in the middle. But all that being said, I think it's going to be a great game. TCU's favored by 2.5. I got to say, I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs. I like them to cover the spread. I think TCU by a field goal. I think this will be a really close game, and I think the Horned Frogs will come out on top and take the three spot in the CFP convincingly and roll into the playoffs with an undefeated record.
I love what you said about the Big 12, about how it's flipped. If you would have told me in week 1 that TCU is going to go to the Big 12 championship undefeated with wins against Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas State in the regular season, I would have told you that you're nuts. Like, I would have been on the message board saying, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Because, Max Duggan started as the backup. The original quarterback got hurt. He stepped in, and he has just balled all season. Defense has had a little bit of some struggles. He has too. But, he's led the team in some huge comebacks, especially against Baylor and Oklahoma State. But TCU has just been phenomenal, and I think that they deserve some credit, and they nonetheless have earned the credit. So, yeah, they're a good football team, and I think that no matter what happens in this game, they're going to the playoffs. MAC championship. I know nobody's going to want to listen to this, but still, we're going to pick it. Toledo versus Ohio at 12 p.m. in Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field, the home of the Detroit Lions. Toledo 7-5, Ohio 9-3. All this just to win the MAC. And look, I actually loved watching some midweek action this season. Gave me something to watch in the middle of the week. It was a good time. The spread is Toledo 2.5. The matchup predictor is Toledo 55%. So obviously this game is going to be close, or at least the professionals think it's going to be close. Now, personally, and I'm picking first, but personally, I don't really understand how Ohio is at 9-3 and Toledo is at 7-5, and Toledo is favored in this game. I'm gonna go with Ohio to win this game, but I'm not gonna call them to cover the spread. I'm gonna call Ohio, but I'm gonna give the points to Toledo. That's really close. I think by a point. I think if it's going to be that close, especially in the MAC, crazy things happen in the MAC. And honestly, this game could be a blowout. Toledo could blow them out. Ohio could blow out Toledo. I don't know what's going to happen. MAC is crazy, and I got Ohio.
Yeah, Mason, I think it's a solid pick. The MAC is crazy, like you said. Given that Toledo's favored by 2.5 as which I consider to be the underdog, even so, regardless of the spread or the matchup predictor, because they are a 7-5 team playing 9-3 Ohio. I'm also going to go with Ohio. I like them to be the MAC daddy and get the win to clinch the MAC championship.
Yeah, man, Ohio to be the MAC daddy. I like that. Joey is picking Toledo. I don't know why we're picking apart so much, but it's happening for some reason. But no, yeah, I got Ohio in this one. You got Ohio. Joey's got Toledo. Nothing else really to say. The Sun Belt Championship, another group of 5. This is Coastal Carolina versus Troy at 3:30 p.m. at Troy University. Something that's interesting to me about some of these group of 5 conferences is that they don't play in a neutral site. They play at the home of the top team in the conference. So Troy's the top team in the conference right now, and they're playing at Troy. That's really interesting to me. CCU, they're coming off a huge road loss to JMU by like 40 points. I don't understand how that happened, but it did. Can they turn it around, though? We'll see. The spread is Troy 8.5. Matchup predictor might as well be that. It's calling Troy to win by a lot. Isaac's got to pick first. And Isaac, does Coastal Carolina have a chance in this with it being at Troy, or do you think Troy pulls it out?
So, Mason, I'm sitting here looking at this game, and Troy hasn't lost since that crazy Hail Mary loss against App State earlier in the year. Coastal, on the other hand, they did just get demolished by James Madison. They also, on paper, they demolished App State, but really, they just played a relatively convincing game that App State almost came back towards the end. Given the performance thus far this year, Troy has played really well in the Sun Belt. Coastal has kind of had a little bit of a shaky finish to the year. The Chanticleers, they've been solid. They handled App State. I like Coastal, but I'm going to go with Troy in this one. I think they're going to get the win at home. I think they'll clinch the Sun Belt, and it'll be a change of scenery for the Sun Belt either way because Louisiana is a little bit lackluster this year with Billy Napier being gone, and so is App State. So either way, seeing here nor there, I've got Troy in this one. As much as I'd like to see Coastal win, I don't think they'll do it.
I hate having to pick a team that I don't want to win. I did that with Michigan, and they actually ended up winning. I got personal ties to Coastal. Go Chance. I got a lot of friends at Coastal, and I grew up 2 hours from Coastal. They're even a huge part of the community down here in Charleston, 2 hours away. But man, Troy looks so good right now. Like you said, their only losses being to some top programs. The first game of the year against Ole Miss, third game of the year on a close loss on a Hail Mary against App State. Just with the way Troy's been playing, I don't really have a choice. I got to go with the Chanticleers, never picking against them. Go Chance, CCU all the way. Hit them with that Uno reverse. That's right. I probably should have used it on a Power 5 champ, but I'm not. I'm using it on a Group of 5 champ. Get wrecked. No, I got Coastal. Do I think they'll win? I don't know. I definitely think it's possible. I think JMU, on the road, is probably a fluke, probably a trap game. I think they can turn it around, and I think they'll give Troy a run for their money. Joey is also picking Coastal. That's just what happens when you got two Charleston kids who grew up close to Coastal. So yeah, chance up, go Coastal, and let's hope the boys pull off the win. AAC Championship. This is a regular season rematch. Number 22 UCF versus number 18 Tulane at 4 p.m. at Tulane University. Tulane ahead in the conference, especially after UCF dropped the loss to 3-8 Navy, who had 0 passing yards, ran the triple option the entire time and did it convincingly. This is another, like we said, another regular season rematch. UCF is actually the team who beat Tulane. This is literally going to be another game the same because they've already played. UCF went to Tulane and won. Now they're going to Tulane again. What's going to happen? Spread is Tulane by 3.5. Matchup predictors close to that. Joey picks first this time. Who's he got? Tulane. Joey has Tulane in this one. That's an interesting pick considering that UCF already came to Tulane and beat them. But I got to go with Joey on that one. I got to pick Tulane. I think Tulane, they're ranked higher. They don't have a loss to 3-8 Navy. I think the defense picks up a little bit and knocks UCF off. Also, I'm not on the Gus bus. I don't like Gus Malzahn, and I'm never picking him because I can't trust him. Tulane.
So here's what I'm going to say. I think this will be a great game. I think that the American is an underrated Group of 5 conference. Tulane's had a great year. UCF has been about as good as UCF can be. Gus Malzahn has had a pretty good year there. UCF, they ran the conference for a few years. But the Green Wave have had a great year. They're favored by 3.5. It's in New Orleans. I've got to say, I'm not so sold on that, but I'm going to go with the Green Wave. I think the Green Wave are going to get it done against UCF, even though they just lost a couple of weeks ago. I think they're going to be able to come out swinging. They're going to get the win at home and clinch the American. TBD triple pick. Green Wave for the win. Go Tulane.
Absolutely. This will be a good one. I think this is probably one of the better Group of 5 matchups. It's the only ranked Group of 5 matchup. 2 ranked teams, obviously with UCF being number 22, Tulane being number 18. I think it'll be a good game. Mountain West Championship. The good old Mountain West. Got the Fresno State Bulldogs versus the Boise State Broncos at 4 p.m. in Boise at Boise State. Like the AAC Championship, this game has already happened. In Boise State's 6th game of the year, Fresno State came to town, and they won in Boise 40-20. So we've already seen the outcome of this game. I got to pick first. The spread is Boise State by 3. The matchup predictor, 70%. So the matchup predictor thinks that this game will probably be more like a touchdown, so like 6.5 to 8, somewhere in there. Obviously, Vegas thinking it's going to be closer than that. I don't think so. I got Boise State to cover and more. They already beat this team at home, 6th game of the year. I have no problem picking Boise State. I think the Broncos take this one handily. I don't think it's a problem.
I think this will be an interesting one, Mason. I think that's a good pick. Fresno State, not a great year, not a terrible year. I mean, they're playing for the conference championship. But Boise State, I'm also with you on this one. I got the Broncos in this one. I think they'll cover. Honestly, they'll probably win by 7, 10, or even more. I think they'll cover and then some. I think they'll stay in Boise and get it done. No problem.
And Joey is also picking Boise State for another TBD triple pick. Like we said, there's not much to this one. It's going to be an easy one. Boise State Broncos for the win. Fresno State pulls it out. Cool, but I don't think they will. All right, here's one we've been waiting for. The biggest championship game every year. The SEC Championship, number 14 LSU versus number 1 Georgia at 4 p.m. in Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This will be the Dogs' 5th appearance in the SEC Championship in 7 years under Kirby Smart. They've only won it once, 2017 against Auburn. The last time LSU won the West, they beat the Dogs handily for the SEC title, 2019. Did the Dogs get to return the favor this year? I mean, the Tigers are without Joe Burrow, Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, and they might not even have Harold Perkins, and he's actually on the team this year. Let's spell it out. The Dogs come in undefeated, being led by walk-on and super-duper senior Stetson Bennett. The Tigers coming in with the possibility to be the first 2-loss team to make the playoff if they beat Georgia, except they dropped the third L last weekend to 4-7 Texas A&M. The Dogs haven't just rebuilt, they reloaded, and they've proved it all season. Now, that's not to say the Tigers haven't done the incredible. They won the SEC West, the toughest division in college football, in Brian Kelly's first year. They knocked off top 15 teams like Ole Miss and Alabama. I mean, LSU is the reason that Ohio State is in the 5 spot looking for a chance to sneak in and not Alabama. An incredible season. This is definitely going to be a game, and I'm excited to see how it goes. Isaac, what do you think just about LSU? Definitely being knocked out of the playoffs and what this game would mean to LSU even if they won it.
I was getting ready to say their playoff chances this year are like the chances of rain in Death Valley on a Saturday night. Never. Now, with that being said, I'm still kind of speechless about the loss to A&M, just to be honest with you. And a lot of these, I'm in a couple of LSU groups on Facebook, and everybody's like, oh, I'm so happy we beat Ole Miss and Alabama and we won the West. But it's like, listen, a 3-loss team winning the West is like a blind person passing the driver's ed test. It just doesn't happen. And I'm kind of enthralled that they are appeased by that amount of success. But that's neither here nor there. I think it'll be a good game. Kudos to Coach BK. Got the clinching the West in his first year. That's a big deal. Whether the West had a down year or not, Bama is the standard. And for you to win that division in your first year, he won his first game against Bama, won the West, first year in the SEC, on and on and on. A bunch of firsts for the Tigers this year. Harold Perkins is a great player. I'm concerned about him. I'm concerned about Jaden Daniels. He tweaked his ankle last weekend. I read on Tuesday he was in a boot. He's probably going to be okay. He avoided a high ankle sprain. All of that said, though, Georgia's favored by 17.5. It was originally, I think, 14 or 15. Of course, it went up a little bit after the loss to A&M. Georgia with the matchup predictor, 83%. As much as I hate it, as dominant as the West has been, I think the Tigers can give up a good fight if they show up, which they did not do in College Station last weekend. But for the first time this year, and it breaks my heart, I'm going to go with the Dogs in this one. I think they'll beat LSU. I don't necessarily know that they'll cover. I think maybe by 17. I think maybe they just come in a little bit under on the spread. But unfortunately, I do think the Dogs get it, and if they do, I hope they go all the way. But I think Georgia takes the 1 seed, gets this win this weekend, and goes on to the CFP.
See, that's where I'm with you on that one. I'm definitely calling the Dogs to win this game, but the point spread is what gets me. I don't know if UGA will cover. I'll say this. If Harold Perkins and Jaden Daniels, basically the leader of the defense and leader of the offense, are out with injuries, then Georgia definitely covers the spread because Stetson's gonna light up the secondary. Our running game will not be able to be stopped. I think that we'll cover the spread handily if they're out. But if they do play, it'll make it a little bit harder. I don't think they cover the spread. But just to be official, I'm going to go UGA wins and covers the spread. I call UGA to win by 20. That's my prediction. Joey is also picking Georgia to win this one for obvious reasons. I mean, it's like we talked about on Wednesday. Georgia, they're just the best team in the country. There's enough of a gap between Georgia and Michigan and the rest of them. Georgia's going to win this one pretty handily, I think. And I know it sucks to say. And you know what? If the Tigers win it, man, good for them. And they can be the SEC champions, and we'll still be in the playoffs. So that's not a knock. That's just facts. Personally, I really want to be number one because I'd like to play the first round of the playoffs in Atlanta. That would be pretty cool. Basically have the home field advantage in the playoffs. And as a fan, I mean, look, as an analyst, that may not be exactly fair, but to be fair, the other playoff site is in Arizona, and if USC makes the playoffs, then it's not really fair that they barely got in the playoff with a loss, and we're going to play on their home turf. So that's that. That's the SEC championship. The Big Ten championship. Purdue versus number 2 Michigan at 8 p.m. in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. This is another matchup that may not mean as much with a loss. Michigan's in no matter what. We talked about that yesterday. The spread is Michigan by 16.5. That's a big point spread, but especially after seeing the way they played against Ohio State, I think that's reasonable because Purdue is definitely nowhere near as good as Ohio State. So I think that that's definitely doable. Joey is picking Michigan on this one. I'm picking Michigan on this one. Isaac, I think you were picking Michigan on this one. What do you say?
Well, Mason, I'm glad to know you assumed that about me, and I would hate to tell you that you're absolutely right. I got the blue in this one. I think the Wolverines get the win. Michigan, man, listen, Purdue's on a bad team. They played Penn State somewhat close in like week 1, but Purdue, they just don't have it, man. Michigan just went into the horseshoe. They handled the Buckeyes. Ohio State sucks, by the way. So, yeah, Michigan's going to get the win. Triple pick all the way.
I think this is going to look a lot like last year when Michigan won 40-3 against Iowa. I think Purdue will score a touchdown this time, but I say probably 31-10 Michigan. All right, last game. ACC Championship. Number 9 Clemson versus 23 North Carolina at 8 p.m. in Charlotte, North Carolina, Bank of America Stadium, home of the Panthers. 2 multiple loss teams in this championship, although they're both ranked. But also, they're both coming off huge under 3-point losses at home to their rivals. UNC lost to North Carolina State 30-27 in double overtime. And like we've talked about all week, Clemson lost to the Gamecocks 31-30. In this one, there's no playoff implications. It's just bragging rights and a better bowl game because you get a better ranking. The spread is Clemson 7.5. A week ago, I would have bet that it would be Clemson favored by 14, at least, if not more. With their loss to South Carolina, I think it's dropped to 7.5. I got to pick first, and this is definitely difficult. I think that Clemson has a really good defense. Obviously, they didn't play great against South Carolina, and neither did their offense, really. North Carolina did not play good against NC State. They did at the very end, and they barely got it to overtime, but they somehow did. This is just a tough one, man. I tell you what, I got to go with Clemson. I hate to go with Clemson. I'm like you. I really want to pull for North Carolina, and I hope North Carolina wins. I just don't see them pulling it out. You know what? I'm going with North Carolina. I'm doing it, bro. I can't. Look, whose loss was closer? Obviously, North Carolina's loss was closer, but they went to overtime, and Drake May is a good quarterback. Clemson, however, they lost by 1, but I just didn't see anything from them that looked like a championship team, especially of the conference. I'm calling North Carolina to come in and knock off Clemson in the ACC championship.
Mason, that is bold. I'll just say this to start off with. It'll be nice to see a team from one of the Carolina states win in Charlotte. That would be cool. But all that said, I think North Carolina has a great chance to win this game. Clemson's had an off year. They're coming off a close loss to South Carolina. I think they'll come in with a chip on their shoulder. The Tar Heels coming in with another chip on their shoulder, losing the rivalry game in Chapel Hill to the Wolfpack. I think this will be a good one. Like you said, no playoff implications, just bragging rights in a better bowl game. UNC's played Clemson close a couple of times in the past few years, most notably when Mac Brown went for 2 in Chapel Hill a couple of years ago, and they lost by, I think it was 1 point or 2 points as a result of the 2-point conversion. All of that said, I'm going to go with you as well. I'm going to go with the Tar Heels. As much as I'm not going to pull for North Carolina. I don't really care who wins, but I think they'll beat Clemson. I think that they have a good shot at it, and I think they'll come in looking to avenge the loss to NC State, and they'll want to claim the ACC title for the first time in a long time. So I think the Tar Heels get it done.
I did not expect you to pick North Carolina. I'm really glad that I'm not alone, though, because obviously Joey is going to pick Clemson. That's his pick. No surprise there, not a shock. And I'm not even really confident in North Carolina. I mean, obviously I was picking Clemson at first, but I just got to go with my gut. My head was saying Clemson, my gut was saying North Carolina, and my gut has been wrong before, but it has also been good before. So obviously it's a 50-50 shot. But it's kind of funny to think back to last year's ACC championship and think that it was Pitt and Wake Forest, and Pitt won by 2 touchdowns. And it kind of seems like the ACC has righted itself with Clemson and UNC back in the championship. I just think it's funny. I think it's interesting. But that's our podcast. Coming into championship weekend, we got a lot of great games. We got some huge games like we talked about on Sunday. We're looking forward to this game coming up this Saturday, Georgia versus LSU. I'm going to be working during that time, so I'm going to be trying my best to keep my eyes on the score. But I just some great games coming up in championship weekend. But, I got to say, go Dogs.
Go Tigers. Obviously, I'll be repping my purple and gold this weekend, but I don't think it'll be fun for me, Mason. I think you'll have a lot more fun.
Probably. Always remember, no matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. John 3:16 tells us, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life." God loves you. He sent his Son to die for you. The gospel is that you are a sinner. I am a sinner. We are all sinners. We all created a gap between ourselves and God who created us because of our own choices to sin. But in that love and in his mercy, God sent his Son Jesus to take a cross, die, and take the punishment that we deserved in order to bridge the gap that we created so that we could have an intimate, personal relationship with our Father who created us and loves us. And I promise you that's the truth. The gospel and salvation in Jesus is very close to the heart of TBD Sportscast. If you ever have any questions about it, you can always reach out to us. Send us a DM on Instagram. Send us a message on Facebook Messenger. Leave a comment on this YouTube video. We'll always get back to you. We'll talk to you about it. Anything you're struggling with, we'll give you the best help and advice we can. We're praying for our listeners. We thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, go vote on the TBD Sportscast College Football Awards Show. Link in the bio in our Instagram, on Facebook, and in the description of this YouTube video. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you on Sunday, actually, as we make our picks for who's going to make the playoffs after everything goes the way it does Saturday. Bye-bye.
Later.